So this is the basic mass of our vaulted ceiling. And what we'll do now is create some vaults or some cylinders that we're going to use to subtract from this basic mass. Let's go here to the left viewport and right click. We'll select the maximize viewport. And I want to zoom in. You can see here, here's the opening, and these are the two solid parts. So I'd like to create this cylinder in this area here. And I will use my snaps, my grid snaps, to do this. So let's right click on the 3D snaps. You can see grid points is currently set, which is what we want. And let's then left click. So the snaps are on. And we'll zoom into that area. Go back to the Create panel and start creating a single cylinder, a 3D geometrical object cylinder. We'll create this approximately in the center. So let's go to the Modify panel and check the size of the cylinder. Its radius is currently at 165 centimeters, and ideally we'd want this to be 150. You may have to cheat a little bit here, and again, in imperial units, it's 5 feet radius. We may have to cheat a little bit here because of the way that we're going to subtract this cylinder from the overall mass of the vaulted ceiling. Let's go back to the 4 viewport configuration. And you can see, if I right click in my top view, where this cylinder has been placed. You can see a couple of things. It's very short, so we need to make this considerably taller. In fact, we have to exceed twice the width. And let's try that. And it's a little disturbing that it's all the same color. So let's click here in the cylinder's color swatch and change it to something a little different. It's a little bit easier to see now. Let's go here to the select and move. We can remove now our snaps. Bring your cursor to the X axis so that will restrict the movement of the cylinder only in X. And move it so that it can exceed the width of our vaulted ceiling, but it has to go to both extremities or beyond both extremities. We need to create multiple copies of this cylinder so that we have the various cylinders to remove from the vaulted area. So we'll go here to the Tools menu and choose Array. We'll enter a value in the Y direction for our copy distance. And actually, we need to make it a negative value. We want the copies or the duplicates to be instances so that they're linked together. And we need to enter here that we'd like to have 5. We can preview how this array is going to work out. Press Tab to get out of that. And you can see here are the duplicates. So we'll click OK. Let's take now these 5 duplicated cylinders and we're going to rotate them so that we get 5 cylinders in the other direction. We'll go to the Rotate tool Now notice here we have a gizmo of the rotation tool. It shows us where this is going to happen, what point, and it's pretty close to the origin, but it's not exactly on the origin. We have to ask or show Max that we'd like this rotation to occur about the origin. So we need to go to this pull down list here and say, I want this to occur about the world space center. And also we click on this button here, which is the center of, again, the world space. You can see now that this gizmo has snapped to the center, and we're going to use this, this blue ring or right here. Before we start clicking and dragging, first thing we'll do is go here to the snaps toggle. Then we'll come to the gizmo, hold our shift key down so we'll get duplicates, and rotate until we reach 90 degrees. You can see here it's also prompting us if we want copy or instances. We'll stick to instances and click on OK. Let me point out a potential problem area here. In the left view, let's right click on that and turn off the grid by typing the letter G. You can see that our cylinder is coming right to the edge of our vaulted geometry. Now imagine this is happening also in the other direction. So when we start subtracting these cylinders, it's coming down to a point here. This is a potential problem area where geometry is coming to a sharp point when we're doing Boolean operations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat a little bit here. I'm going to make these vaulted ceilings just a little bit smaller. Let's go ahead and select one of these objects. And fortunately, we used instances. Good thing about instances is we modify one object and every object will get modified. So let's change this here from 150 centimeters or from 5 feet to 145 or 4 feet 10 inches. And when we hit tab, you'll notice that all these cylinders get slightly smaller. Another thing that we should change is the number of segments or sides that are being used in this cylinder. You can see that very clearly actually the straight sides that are approximating our cylinder. And this is certainly, if we were under this vaulted ceiling, would be a little bit too rough and would probably be a bit disturbing to the eye. So we're going to increase the number of sides and we're going to double them to 36. There. That looks a lot smoother. Let's finish the process now of creating our vaulted ceiling by selecting the vaulted ceiling and using something called a Boolean operation. We'll go into the Create panel and select this down arrow until we come to Compound Objects. Select the button called Pro Boolean. Scroll down. Make sure in the parameters area it should be set to subtraction. Make sure it's set to subtraction. And again, double check, is your vaulted ceiling object selected? Click on Start Picking. And now you can go along and start picking each one of these cylinders one at a time. And you can check the progress in your other viewports as well. And you can see how it's creating a vaulted ceiling by subtracting these cylinders. Let's have a look at this. Type the letter in the perspective viewport, right-click, type the letter U to switch to an orthographic viewport, and use here this tool, arc rotate. Grab this lower and scroll up. It's a little hard to see here. We use the pan by using the middle mouse button. Type the letter G to remove the grid. Go to single viewport configuration. Right-click in the viewports to exit the pro-Boolean function. If you want, you could zoom in on one of these areas and you could see how it's created a pretty complex looking vault just by using these cylinders and subtracting them from this mass.